Good afternoon. Welcome to the October 7 board meeting of the Yakima School Board. Before we begin, I would like to remind our audience that we offer Spanish interpretation services from Jorge with Language Connection. If you need translation assistance in person, please check with Jorge for a device. And Jorge, please translate that information.
Para aquellos que necesiten de la ayuda de un intérprete, tenemos los radios disponibles aquí atrás. Thank you.
We do provide live streaming for this meeting. The link can be found on our webpage under Board of Directors or by going directly to www.ysd7.org/board-meetings. If you wish to make a public comment this afternoon, there are two options available for you. The first option is for commenting on agenda items only, and the second option, which comes toward the end of the meeting, is for all other topics. In order to speak tonight, you will need to sign two forms, a sign-in form and a guidelines form. If you are interested in watching past meetings, you may find them on our webpage's YSD YouTube channel. Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett.
Here.
Director Rice.
Here.
Director Navarro Jr. Vice President Villanueva.
Here.
President Walker.
It's nice to see us all at one meeting. Okay, today we have two students from Garfield, Xiomara and Emma, who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I, Emily Garfield, flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to read the character word for this month. Empathetic. Cultivating the ability to understand and share the feelings and perspectives of others. Or empático. Llevando la habilidad de comprender y compartir los sentimientos y perspectivas de otros. And now we have the land acknowledgement.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
Hoy las escuelas del Distrito Escolar de Yakima descansan en las tierras ancestrales de las 14 tribus y bandas confederadas de la nación Yakima.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
La gente de la nación Yakima habitó más de 10 billones de acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties.
En los condados de Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Franklin, Kittitas, Klickitat, y Yakima.
Today we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture.
Hoy honramos a estos pueblos originales que están vinculados en la tierra a través de historias, leyendas y culturas.
We acknowledge the descendants who live in the world today.
Reconocemos a sus descendientes que viven en el mundo de hoy.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Agradezcamos a los guardianes de la tierra quienes han vivido aquí y continúan viviendo aquí desde tiempos inmemoriales.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Un reconocimiento es una manera simple y poderosa de mostrar respeto.
And a step toward correcting the stories, and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture.
Y un paso hacia la corrección de las historias y prácticas que borran la historia y la cultura de los pueblos indígenas.
It also honors the truth. También honra la verdad. As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Como distrito escolar, continuaremos fortaleciendo nuestras relaciones con la nación Yakima.
Thanks again to our students. Today we are celebrating with 3 proclamations. We're going to celebrate our principals with the Principals Month proclamation read by Director Beckett. Then we will have an Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation read by Director Navarro, and a School Bus Safety Week proclamation from Director Villanueva.
Whereas the Washington State Senate has officially declared the month of October 2024 as National Principals Month in collaboration with the National Association of Elementary School Principals, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and the U.S. Congress to honor the critical role of principals and assistant principals in leading our schools. And whereas in the Yakima School District, our principals and assistant principals serve as visionary leaders who are committed to ensuring every student has access to a high-quality education. They lead with purpose, inspire hope, and work tirelessly to create inclusive environments where every student can thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. And whereas these dedicated professionals juggle numerous responsibilities, serving not only as instructional leaders, but also as community builders, public relations experts, fiscal managers, and advocates for equity. They navigate complex legal and policy frameworks while maintaining the highest standards of safety, student achievement, and well-being. And whereas Yakima School District principals and assistant principals collaborate with families, teachers, and district officials to develop clear goals and objectives that drive student success. They are instrumental in upholding high curriculum standards and fostering a culture of excellence and innovation for all students, regardless of background or ability. And whereas the Yakima School District, in partnership with the Association of Washington School Principals, honors and recognizes the outstanding achievements of our school leaders who work tirelessly to provide students with meaningful learning opportunities and who embody the best of what it means to be an educator and leader. And whereas it is fitting that we acknowledge the tireless dedication of Yakima School District's principals and assistant principals during National Principals Month, as their leadership directly impacts the future success of our students, the most valuable resource in our community. Now, therefore, the Yakima School District Board of Directors does hereby proclaim October 2024 as Principals Month in the Yakima School District and encourages all community members to join us in this special observance to recognize and celebrate the pivotal role our principals play in the success of our students and schools.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director Beckett. Now, Director Navarro.
See if I can get through this with my voice here. So the Indigenous Peoples Day, October 2024 proclamation. Excuse me. A resolution of the Board of Directors of Yakima School District Number 7, reaffirming the board's commitment to promote the well-being and growth of every district student, especially of Yakima's American Indian and Indigenous students. Whereas the board recognizes that the Indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial, and whereas the board recognizes the fact that Yakima is built upon the homelands and the villages of the indigenous peoples of this region, without whom the building of the city would not have been possible. And whereas the board values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous people's knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contribution that have substantially shaped our district. And whereas the board has established that each and every student is to be celebrated and appreciated for the district and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, languages, ideas, beliefs, and values within the school of community. And whereas the board has a responsibility to oppose the systemic racism towards Indigenous people in the United States, which perpetuates high levels of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disproportionate health, education, and social crisis. And whereas, excuse me, whereas the board seeks to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination stemming from colonization and to promote awareness, understanding, and good relations among Indigenous peoples and all other segments of our district. And whereas the board promotes closing the equity gap for Indigenous peoples through policies and practices that reflect experiences of Indigenous peoples, ensure greater access and opportunity, and honor our nation's Indigenous roots, history, and contributions. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Yakima School District proclaim every second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. The district shall encourage staff to utilize the second Monday in October to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous peoples of this land and are encouraged to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the Indigenous people in our region and to stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples elsewhere. Dated this 7th day of October 2024, Yakima School District Board of Directors.
Thank you, Director Navarro. And next up, we have Director Villanueva.
Thank you. I have a School Bus Safety Week, October 21 through 25, 2024. Whereas school buses are the most regulated vehicles on the road and provide one of the safest forms of transportation, with over 10,300 buses in Washington State safely transporting more than 680,000 students each day, covering an impressive 50 million miles annually. And whereas the safety of our children is a paramount concern, and school bus drivers are entrusted with this responsibility, undergoing comprehensive training and certification, and continually maintaining the highest standards of care. And whereas in addition to bus drivers, the critical roles of instructors, maintenance staff, supervisors, and support personnel contribute significantly to the ongoing success of our student transportation system, maintaining safety and efficiency. And whereas School Bus Safety Week offers an opportunity to reflect on the collective efforts of our educators, transportation teams, law enforcement, and community in providing safe travel for students, and to express our gratitude for their dedication and professionalism. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Yakima School Board hereby proclaims October 21 through 25, 2024 as School Bus Safety Week, urging all residents to recognize the importance of school bus safety and to honor the outstanding individuals who make student transportation possible every day. Dated the 7th day of October, 2024, Yakima School District Board of Directors.
Thank you. Next up, we have YEA President, Ms. Frances Guerrero, to address the board.
Good afternoon. So I have alluded repeatedly to the struggles that the special education program is, but today, in this setting where I think it's easier for you to really see and feel what my members are going through, I'm going to read you actual emails that I get all the time. So none are from this building, but I'm sure teachers here could definitely relate. So I'm skipping around a little bit in the email. This particular teacher. I'm also glad to hear that my efforts during short-staffed days have been recognized. We have been consistently understaffed, and the other SPED teacher and I have been doing our best to support the classroom staff and students with the limited resources available. I'd like to reiterate that our classroom currently has 3 students requiring one-on-one support from substitute staff. These students rely on one-on-one assistance to meet their personal and academic needs, which adds additional pressure to our team because they're substitutes right now. During our phone conversation, mom of a student asked if student X had eaten. I shared my understanding of his eating habits, explaining that he had eaten a little school breakfast and tended to eat only small amounts of his home lunch. She then asked if I thought he would eat today, to which I replied that he probably wouldn't, since I wouldn't be sitting with him. The option for mom to feed student X in the classroom was raised while she was in the office. At that time, I was managing my full classroom and assisting another student when a counselor approached me and asked if mom could stay to feed student X. I responded, Mom can't stay today as we were extremely short-staffed and I was already struggling to manage with the limited resources available. I had previously informed the counselor about our staffing challenges and requested assistance with walking students through the lunch line, but she was unable to help as she was covering for someone else in the office. Thankfully, someone else was able to step in and provide support. On Friday, we were down 4 staff members who are typically essential during lunchtime. Having mom stay to feed student X in my classroom would have created further disruption for the students who already face challenges during this particularly busy time. Lunch is one of the most hectic periods for our staff and students as we focus on addressing life skills, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and toileting, in addition to walking students through the lunch line. While this structure is functional for the students, it adds extra work for our limited staff. The other SPED teacher and I have gone out of our way to support the students and para staff during this time. People might think that lunch should be the easiest part of the day, but it absolutely is not. Despite this, we continue to assist even during half days, staying past our contracted time to ensure smooth operations. In the office meeting, I reiterated that my classroom wasn't an option for that particular day due to staffing shortages. We were in the process of training 2 new individuals who hadn't worked in the classroom this year. I was transparent with mom about these challenges. She acknowledged that feeding student X can sometimes take 45 minutes to an hour and reiterated that it was her decision to pick him up. When we met in your office, mom had already made the parental decision to take student X home, most likely after I informed her that I wouldn't be able to provide the one-on-one attention he needed during lunch due to my other classroom responsibilities. As we discussed, I agreed that she can come to feed student X and the location will be determined on a case-by-case basis. When the classroom is fully staffed, she is welcome to feed him there. If not, we can utilize an admin office. Additionally, considering our push-in model, it is possible for her to feed student X in the cafeteria, though we are awaiting confirmation from admin about implementing these solutions. This is just about trying to get one child fed. Last week, the other SPED teacher and I decided to combine our classrooms for the entire day to alleviate the pressure caused by being short-staffed by 4 adults. Together, we had a total of 15 students. Given the circumstances, the suggestion of having Para Jane assist student X would have only added to the difficulties we were already facing on that day. In this scenario, there were not many solutions. We were extremely understaffed, and there was no plan in place for situations like this. The suggestion to switch Para Jane with a sub was not viable for us that day, nor was it proposed. While Para Jane is bilingual, she is needed to support the classroom. When more staff are present and aware of student needs, switching Para Jane, a classroom para with a non-bilingual one-on-one sub, can be considered. I explained to everyone that even with Para Jane assisting him, there was no guarantee that student X would eat. He needs a consistent one-on-one para, and mom has been checking in with SES about making this happen. Every day, I make adjustments to how my paras support the classroom based on our needs. After being short-staffed earlier in the week, I double-checked with SES, and he confirmed that I can make adjustments as necessary, whether with classroom paras or one-on-one support. While this isn't a long-term solution, we all agreed it is a temporary approach to managing our current situation. And on Friday, we had to make do again. It is crucial that we establish a plan for one-on-one support when staff members are absent. This will ensure that all of our students receive the consistent support they need, even in challenging staffing situations. This is in all buildings. This is just one situation, but that's all buildings. They all need a plan for when those one-on-ones are absent and when multiple one-on-ones are absent. Different building. I am writing because this is a safety issue. This is an example of what happens with the STEAM specialist. Mrs. Doe's class has 4 students come with 1 para-ed to specialists. The para is actually assigned to be with 1 student. Today she came with that 1 student plus the other 3 students. Mondays, they do visual art and STEAM. There are different supplies out for 3 different grade levels. All 4 of the students with autism are nonverbal. 1 will sit at the table drawing the entire time. 2 others won't sit for more than 5 minutes and then they wander the room. The para is with her one-on-one student, and if he is having a bad day, he is throwing anything he can get his hands on, plus hitting anyone he gets close to. So while the teacher was trying to guide the rest of the first grade, the teacher is also following the other nonverbal wanderer to stop him from pulling things out because he's opening all the cabinets he finds. This is not safe. He did become occupied with cars at the front of the room for about 5 minutes. This is not inclusion. There are not enough adults to have them work on what their peers are working on. This is babysitting, and I am not a babysitter. Different building. Here are my concerns with inclusion during elementary specialists. Right now, we typically have 5 students come to specialists with 1 para. Of these 5 students, 1 needs all the attention of the para, leaving the specialist to manage the other 4 students if a behavior para is not available, on top of a classroom of kinders or first graders who also have behavior issues. Or the 4 remaining students are not getting the support they need from a para and aren't able to access the content to their fullest extent. I don't believe specialist is the least restrictive environment for many of our students. We have students that are pushed, screaming into the specialist space, and then the para spends the next 45 minutes trying to keep the student from running. We had 1 student try to jump out a 2nd-story window for 45 minutes, and they weren't removed from the classroom. We have other students at a developmental level of 9 to 16 months old who cannot sit or be safe around the other children, and other students who just lie under a table. 2 weeks ago, 2 students kept me from starting my 3rd grade class because they didn't want to leave the library. They spent their entire library time crying and being fed Oreos, which I had to scrape off the furniture after they left. The 2 students were screaming, and 5 adults came to deal with the 2 students and carried them out of the room like a sack of potatoes. Things like this happen regularly in the library, STEAM, and sometimes music classes. I don't think the paras have enough training. 1 does all the work for her students, coloring, cutting, gluing, rather than supporting the student in doing it themselves. Another moves classroom furniture around or clears off a teacher desk to keep her students from escaping or getting into things they shouldn't. I don't have enough training. Students are also being sent independently to specialists. So on top of an already large class, we are adding 3 students with autism with no support. I'm all for inclusion when it is in the best interest of the child. Inclusion just to give a teacher plan time is not inclusion. When you see the stress that inclusion places on some of our students with autism and the fact that they are not able to meaningfully participate or access the material, it creates a very difficult environment for all of students, both those in self-contained classes and those in general education. Kindergartners have been hurt by students wandering and stepping on them while we're at the carpet. Focus is nearly impossible to get when there are wailing students. We are failing all of our students with inclusion and creating an overly stressful work environment. Ultimately, the students are not getting the support they need in an appropriate environment. On top of that, the students with autism who come to specialists do not come with any sort of communication tools, and the majority of the younger students are nonverbal. There's no PECS board, no visual schedule, nothing. I created a first, then visual chart for paras, but no one has used it so far. This makes it very difficult to work on inclusion when there's no good way to communicate with the students. We've been told SES will not provide the PECS boards or communication devices. So of course the students scream and cry. They have no other way to communicate their needs. Imagine being in this small space with autistic children as well as gen ed children and not having adequate para support, and worse, having untrained para support while you yourself are untrained with how to deal with those children. Different building. Jane Doe, paraprofessional, came into the library late with another teacher, Mrs. Smith. I already had another class settled and calm, which was a miracle in itself. And then Janet and Mrs. Smith used raised voices multiple times with the boys. I carried on class watching 2 boys run around in the dark and jump on furniture. Janet was standing probably 15 to 20 feet away from the boys and did not try to intercede or redirect. When we had a transition, I told her that the boys could not be running or jumping. She responded somewhere along the lines of, "I'm done today." When the behavior pairs came to intercede with the students, I told them that Janet had let the boys do whatever they want, which was why they were probably in an excited state for some time because there had been no intervention. Janet and the two behavior pairs then left, leaving a third self-contained student behind. So I had to track and redirect the student and the students from the other class that were distracted by the self-contained student running around. I had to leave sight of the class to keep eyes on the third boy. This is also unsafe. On top of that, I was dealing with a really difficult gen ed class with a host of behavioral needs. I had gen ed students rolling on the floor, jumping around, hiding under tables, and generally not following directions. It took everything I had to keep it together and manage that class for 45 minutes. I don't know what to do. We have extremely challenging gen ed classrooms, and the SPED students, especially in K1, create a level of noise and distraction that makes teaching nearly impossible. The paras sometimes are dragging screaming children into the library or dragging them out. Does that sound like a student in the least restrictive environment? To compound matters, I have no passing period between classes and no time to decompress from extremely stressful situations. After this first grade situation occurred, I had to immediately go and get third grade. My plan periods are in 30-minute chunks. On Mondays, I don't have a planning period. On half days, I have 6 straight classes in the morning. I am doing all the things my para used to do. Something has to give. All the specialists in my building are feeling stressed out and have similar difficulties. I know we're hiring right now, particularly for one-on-one paras, but I'm telling you that we need more. We need more than just those one-on-ones. We need extra para supervision to help supervise the overall class and they need to be trained. They need to be trained. A lot of times, yes, you will give me the para support, but it's not actually support if I also have to train the para myself. They need to have training before they come into the classroom. And then there needs to be a plan in place for when they're absent, especially, and I know it seems like, that's crazy. How can 4 paras in one day be absent? It happens. And our teachers need a plan in place for how to deal with that. And it can't be the administrators every single time. They are helping out. In all 4 of these buildings, there's been nothing but good things said about the administrators bending over backwards to try and help those teachers out. But that's not their job. They have other things they should be doing. There should be adequate para support, trained para support in those classrooms. Again, just take a second, close your eyes, imagine being in this space and trying to corral all of those students. We are not babysitters. We are professionals trying to impart skills to these students, but we can't do it if we don't have adequate support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our host today, Mr. Steve Brownlow, is the principal here at Garfield Elementary. And he informed me today he is the longest tenured elementary principal in Yakima now.
Elementary.
So, elementary. And looking forward to his presentation. Just a reminder to the board and the audience, there is a tour included, but we will move the tour till after the second comment period. We'll complete the business of the meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'd like to begin, first of all, by thanking our staff members who are here. Also, our part-time assistant principal. We have Mrs. Michelle Qualo, who we share with Barge Lincoln Elementary. So, and to our librarian, who, if you look around in this environment, she and other staff work to create really a welcoming atmosphere here for our students. So for a building that's pretty old, we try to make it look as inviting as possible. Today, I am here to share some information about our school. I look forward to presenting some pictures for you and kind of telling some stories about what we're about here at Garfield Elementary. One of the slides that is not here, but you can see it as board members. It is our mission statement. And one of the best things about that particular mission statement that I like speaks to our desire to make our school irresistible for our students. And we do feel like we are on the path to making that happen. We know as educators, we have a lot of competition when it comes to keeping our kids engaged, keeping their minds focused on what's in front of them in the classrooms. So by helping our students feel like this is a place they cannot miss each and every day is a big part of our mission statement. A little bit about who we are. We are a school of 508 students. With the declining enrollment that is hitting parts of our district, we find that we are not struggling with that. We have a population that, due to where we reside, that we have, maybe it's because it's so irresistible, we have kids coming here on a regular basis. You can see our population of our students that qualify for ELL services. We are right at 60%, 302 of our students. We do have 22 homeroom classes. We also have one self-contained classroom home to 13 of our Garfield students. A large number of our students are served by IEPs, but we are under the state average at 12.01%. And one of our things that we are very proud of here is our work on improving achievement. And board, you may have recalled last year we made a presentation to the school board, and we recognized a couple of our parents who have really worked extra hard to try to make sure that their kids are getting here each and every day. So we are proud to say that we, for the last 2 years, have averaged, well, not average, but we're right at 92% average daily attendance. And we will not stop until we get the number one spot. Trust me, we're all about, everybody in, that's the staff. And no, but that is really ultimately our goal, is to create a place where all kids want to show up, because if they're not in front of us, it is difficult to impact their lives in the way that we desire to do. 80 of our students are receiving migrant services support, and certainly, but not least, 100% of our kids are absolutely amazing, and we embrace that here at Garfield. We want to make sure that they feel that way, and it's our desire each and every day. And there are challenges, as we just heard, there are some big challenges in front of us, but I am very proud of the staff that we have here at Garfield. Collectively, our staff shows up each and every day, really to do the right work, but to do it together. And I'm proud of our staff for that. I'm proud of the way that they step up each day and they face the challenges that are in front of them. I've shared with Dr. Green in the past, I've been in the district for 17 years. This is my 28th year in education. But this staff that we have in this building is special, and I'm very proud to work with them and very honored to be their principal. So I'd like to go through and some of these and tell you some stories about some of the things that are happening here at Garfield that I believe really are paving the way for us to be a successful building and helping our students find success. On this side over here, as you know, there's a big effort in our district around PLCs, PLTs. And this example right here is from the in-service dates in August, and we were offsite doing our in-service date at the Stone Church. They're our faith-based community partner. They have a very nice facility, and so they open it up and have for several years now for us to be able to meet there. And this is an example of our first grade team here working together, other teams in the background as well. But I think that the work that goes on with our PLTs is pivotal to the success that we are having and that we desire to have. It is our goal to be a model PLC school. We want our staff to receive that recognition, but we also want that because we know it's best practice. At the top is our first day of kindergarten. And what I like about this picture here is we have a student that is next to the banner, and you can see multiple people standing around. So this picture really embodies the idea that our kids are surrounded by a lot of people in their lives there to support them. And that's the first day of kindergarten. And I would venture to say that if everything goes as we want it to, we'll see a similar picture when they graduate 13 years from that date. But kindergarten is really where it all starts for us. And I love that picture because it does talk about developing that strong foundation. And then over to the right, we have a picture of a classroom, and I don't believe that Emma is still here, but this particular first grade classroom received a visit from a character that we try not to let into the building, known as Attendance Man. So each week, we recognize 3 classes, and then this character ends up showing up with a cape and a wig and storms into the classroom playing music and makes an appearance for approximately maybe 2-3 minutes. And I don't care for it because it is a disruption to our educational environment. So nonetheless, they dance. Everybody seems to have a good time. You can look at all of the smiles in there. I see a picture of Mr. Robles, Mrs. Johnson, Miss Qualo in the back. We have the teacher, Mrs. Alcantara, and Mrs. Chandler, and all these beautiful kids. And so typically what we'll do is I'll ask the kids after that, and I'll say, hey, did anybody by chance see attendance man? And nope. The kids are like, we didn't see him. So it's kind of a fun game that happens. But if you see attendance man, please remind attendance man he's not to disrupt what's going on here. The bottom picture is a picture of Yama registration happening. So there was an orientation for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students this year. And Yama was presenting about what is this all about. And so later when we take a tour, I'm going to walk us into the gym. Yama is here today. They've just started, so they don't have instruments out yet, but they are doing some team building activities. And so that's one of the things that we'll do today is go visit Yama. Again, goal 2 being all students being empowered, connected, supported, resilient, and engaged. These pictures I selected for reasons that support goal 2. I was walking down the hallway one day, and this picture of a student named Yoselin, she drew this beautiful picture of herself, and she talks about why she is special because she's intelligent, and in Spanish. And so she's one of our dual language students, and it really embodies, I think, kids feeling empowered. And that's what we want kids, for school to be irresistible. We want them to carry that self perception. Another one up there is our community partnerships that we have with a variety of people. This particular group up here they're part of a networking coalition. So they're made up of different businesses from out the Yakima area. And they contacted us, and we get this periodically from different people in the community. And they say, hey, we'd like to do something for your school. And then I'll ask, what is your connection to Garfield? Well, we don't really have one. We just recognize that your school exists in this community, and we want to be able to help out. So what they did that night is they brought in 4 people to cut hair, and they cut, I think we counted right at 80 hair cuts. They did 80 haircuts, boys and girls. And it's a picture of one of our students up there getting his haircut. And it was just really a great example of how we get supported and how we empower our students. Down below is a picture of Miss McAllister. She's from our self-contained room and working with one of our students. And again, the desire to be able to see all of our students succeed and our staff working together to make that happen is a big part of that picture. And then lastly, this picture over here, if you've heard of a program called Roots to Wings, it is a program through the Pacific Northwest University where we have people in our community becoming doctors, DOs, and so forth. Well, they have now started a pathway for our elementary schools to get involved. An email came out last year about this, and we raised our hand. And so now Garfield Elementary is on this path to connect with some of our older students in the district, and then to go visit the university and to learn a little bit more about what these pathways look like. So very excited about that, and trying to realize that what we do here in building is super important, but there are other opportunities for our kids outside. Also supporting goal 2, just some examples. We try to find opportunities for our students to contribute to the building. So they have that ownership. And so here's a young man that's helping every Wednesday, Mr. Pacheco. He has a group of leadership students who go around the building, they collect all the recycling, and they make that happen. You wouldn't think that that is something that really gets kids excited, but it is. They look forward to that opportunity. The top picture is from a visit to the fair. We had all of our first graders and second graders visit the fair this year. And comments that we got back were that Garfield Elementary kids were absolutely some of the best behaved kids that they had seen during the fair time. And kids got to experience their STEM site where they got to do hands-on activities with STEM. I picked that other picture over there around the messages that we send to our kids. No matter what we're saying or doing, we're always communicating something to our kids. And so I took that picture because it says a lot to our students when they walk in the door of that classroom. And you see a lot of those actually, if you walk around this building, you'll see multiple messages that are going on that are constantly trying to tell kids that we want them here. And the last one is that on a monthly basis, a lot of schools do this, but we provide recognition to all of our students through a Student of the Month assembly. One thing that's unique about ours, though, that I like is it is our goal to make sure that every child gets invited to be highlighted at an assembly at least once this year. So it is a student of the month, but it really is about recognition. We feel at this age that we want to make sure that every child, every family has that opportunity to get recognized. And we do invite all the parents of the kids to be able to come and be a part of that as well. Goal 3 being equitable opportunities to achieve core mastery and critical thinking. Again, the effort taking place in this building to raise the achievement of our students never stops. And so 3 things that I put on here. One, we received notification last June that Garfield was being recognized for high growth in math proficiency and high growth in our attendance. And the banner is on its way, so I've been told. But we have a spot in the gym we've been talking about for years where we would place that banner. But I want to credit our staff for the extra work that they have done, because we have a long way to go, but it is nice to get some recognition that what we are doing is making a difference. And so we're continuing that journey. Again, the picture in the middle is a different team. That is our 2nd grade team working there in the PLTs. Again, it's just the reason we're going to get this is because of that PLT work that's happening. And lastly, as we look at particularly our state assessment, our SBA scores, we have to find rigorous opportunities for our students. We need to, no matter, even though our students may be behind in their skills, we cannot miss the opportunity of providing rigorous opportunities for our kids and raising that level of, or the expectation for high achievement. So that's a picture of some girls that are doing a claims evidence and reasoning activity where they make a claim, they got to show their evidence, and then they give some reasoning as to what that means. Our bilingual, biliterate by graduation piece, this just shows you as Garfield Elementary was part of the first cohort that started this time around with dual language. We are currently into 3rd grade. I see at least one of our dual language teachers in the back from 3rd grade, Mrs. Ozuna, and we are now K through 3. So that just shows the number of classes at each grade level. And all of those grade levels except 3rd grade have one non-dual classroom with them. So 1 non-dual and then the 3 that are dual. 3rd grade has 2 dual and then 2 non-dual classes at the moment. And then this is some data that we have. This is just composite data. So for the last few years, you can see for kinder 1st and 2nd, what their composite scores look like for Garfield Elementary. The reason I chose those other schools is not to make fun of them or show anything, but I'm just showing you the schools that were in that first cohort and where we're at. So we know that until that number shows 100% that we haven't reached our goal, but we'll continue working on that. So credit to our staff once again for their hard work. And lectura is the name of the assessment. If you've heard of DIBELS, lectura is a Spanish component to that. Okay, and then this is our theme this year. So every year we try to pick a theme, and it's a play on Toy Story. And so something our staff came up with about, we felt like everything that's going on in our world, our goal was to try to embrace unity. And how can we do that through our theme? And that's what we ended up coming up with. So again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share with you. It is an honor to be a principal, and I'm so grateful to be here at Garfield Elementary in the Yakima School District. I mean that I will periodically send Dr. Green a message and say, I want to thank you for having this opportunity. It is an honor. So thank you. Any questions that I can answer at this time?
Any questions? Any questions from the board?
Steve, I just want to thank you for the presentation and for the great attendance by your staff. We don't often see a lot of staff at our board meetings, so this is great. Also, congratulations on your focus on PLTs and PLCs. You know, it seems so natural that there would be PLCs and PLTs, but I don't know that that comes naturally to teachers who are necessarily isolated in their classrooms for however many hours they are during the day. And to be able to meet with other teachers and share things about their students that they might have in common, or meet with the next grade level up to see what expectations will be then for those students, or to review with the grade level below. You know, right. This is what we're seeing with student X, And, how did you manage that? I think there's great value in that. And I appreciate your team's focus on pulling together a successful PLT.
Thank you. That means a lot, and our teams truly do work hard. When you talked about that you would think it'd be easy, but it's not. We had a quick meeting today, and then I left the room, and the team stayed in the room and continued to work together. And I can say that hasn't always been the case in my years that I've been a principal. They are committed to working together, and it does take a lot of work. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Any other questions?
Yep. Thank you so much for your presentation, and congratulations on your high attendance rate and your high growth in math proficiency. I do have a question. We generally have seen achievement data during these presentations, and I'm curious to know if that's some information that you can share maybe after the presentation around kind of the standard things we've seen, the math and reading achievement data, things like that. Again, appreciate the growth, but it'd be good to see where we're actually at here at the school.
You bet. Absolutely. I'd be happy to provide that to you. I'll work with Dr. Green and Barb, and we'll come up with a way to share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just wanted to commend you for your leadership and the hard work and the staff here. It's the longer I'm on the school board, the more I understand that the challenges that we face as a district, teachers in the classrooms, and as the leaders in our schools. There's a lot of challenges, but what I'm finding and what I'm impressed about is that the attitudes, the innovation, the just going forward, constant going forward and trying to figure out ways to help our kids learn. So I really wanted just to highlight that and thank you for all the work you guys are doing. It's not an easy task, especially after COVID, and we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic and just everything we went through. And you guys are just constantly just going forward. And I just want to say, I as a board member, I do appreciate that. And I know our families and our kids all appreciate all the work that you're doing to keep going. That's the key, is just to keep going and having that real positive attitude that all kids can succeed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have a series of reports today. Next up, we have a report from Jamie Lee on English and Spanish Language Arts Program.
All right. Well, I don't have anything as exciting as attendance man, so I was trying to think of how I could follow that up, but I will do my very best. So we get to take a look at our English and Spanish language arts program. And we know that building literacy for all of our students is directly connected to our strategic plan goal 3, equitable opportunity to achieve core mastery and critical thinking. So we're actually going to start by looking at a mathematical equation. And this graphic before you is known as the simple view of reading. It comes from literacy research and is well known throughout that community. And the basic of this equation is that without word recognition or decoding and without language comprehension, we do not have proficient readers. So both are very critical in building a program where we produce students that are able to read. And down at the bottom, you'll see smaller components that make up each one of those. So when we think about word recognition, we're looking at, can students identify that words are made up of sounds, and those sounds are connected to letters, and then we put those letters together to make words and read fluently in text. When students can do that, then they can begin to make sense of the text and read the words and sentences to make meaning, which results in proficiency. So how in the Yakima School District do we measure these two things to make sure that our literacy program is comprehensive and students are getting exactly what they need? Well, we start with our early screening of literacy. So what is before you is what we call dibbles and lectura. Thank you, Mr. Brownlow, for alluding to those already. This data is from our fall benchmark. We give this assessment 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And then in the middle of those benchmarks, we do progress monitoring within the same type of assessments to make sure our students are growing. There's a lot of data that comes out of this assessment because we drill down and look at sub-skills of students and their reading, because if a sub-skill is missing, students don't generally progress to the next sub-skill in proficiency. This is a composite score. So I heard Mr. Brownlow talk about a composite. So the program takes all of those sub-skills and gives us one score. So what you're looking at is composite. The lighter bar is our non-dual classrooms, and the darker blue bar is data from our dual language classrooms. And so you can see the data ends for dual language at 3rd grade. That's where our first cohort is at. So we'll be able to watch that cohort of students as they progress all the way through 5th grade. It is really important that we do screen early on, because it allows us to provide interventions for students who might need it, or extensions for students that might need it. It helps us design in our Tier 1, our core instruction, what we're going to teach and meet the needs of our students. It also helps us communicate to families where their students are at and the progress that they're making. Thinking about the second part of the mathematical equation, learning to comprehend, we have the Smarter Balanced Assessment as a summative assessment that measures that for us. The OSPI report card data that is before you, actually, some of it is new. So the very first set of data on the top of that is labeled foundational grade level knowledge. So when students take the SBA, they receive 4 different levels, level 1, 2, 3, or 4. 3 and 4 are considered at benchmark or above, and levels 1 and 2 are considered below benchmark. What the state has done is actually communicated that if a student is performing at level 2, 3, and 4, they are on target for foundational skills for their grade level. You don't see 9th grade up there because we don't assess students at the 9th grade. Then the levels 3 and 4, the data is reporting that these are the percentage of our students who are college ready without needing remedial classes. So there's some celebrations in our data. If you look at 10th grade, we are making some progress, but we also have some room to grow. So what are we doing as a school district to ensure that we are growing our students and moving them towards high achievement rates? Well, you've heard a lot of talk about the PLC process. We are in year 3 of our PLC process. We are still learning a lot, but one accomplishment that we have made is we brought teams of teachers together and we were able to identify guaranteed standards for every single grade level in the ELA and multiple different content areas. These are identified as essential standards. So we are promising to our students and our families that these 8 to 10 standards per grade level are going to be mastered at grade level or beyond, and that then all the other standards will be taught, but these guaranteed standards will ensure proficiency. There's a couple quotes up there. I think that they speak to the research that has been done around identifying guaranteed standards. And now that we have identified those, what do we do next? It's a big process. So teacher teams are meeting, and they have started the 4 PLC questions. And every time they meet in their PLT, they focus on one or all of these 4 questions. The first one, what do students need to know and be able to do? We've identified in our guaranteed standards, but that's still pretty broad. So teachers are looking at those standards and really digging into them. We call it unpacking. So they're determining, what is that standard saying and what do my students actually need to be able to do to show me that they've met that standard? How can I measure it? Goes on to question 2. So our teachers have been developing common formative assessments around ELA, and then they bring that data back together and they look at it and they look at how their students responded. Did they meet the standard? Then they begin the conversation. What do we do if they didn't? Do we reteach? Do we group them? How many is it? And how do we respond if they did? This ensures that we're being responsive to our students' needs, especially if they're struggling or if they've already achieved understanding the concept. It also helps us to identify and address gaps within our program. What are we missing? What do we not have? Our program is a high quality instructional resource, but it's just that, a resource. And sometimes we need to add things to be able to meet the very complex standards. The ELA program that we have is extensive. There's multiple layers where we refer to them as tiers. We have tier 1 instruction, tier 2, tier 3. And tier 3 is really about meeting the needs of our students who are not achieving. So I could go on and on and on about ELA, but I get another opportunity to talk to you, I think, in March about our curriculum. So we'll open it up now to any questions from the board.
Any questions from the board? I have one. It's kind of more related to PLCs and PLTs, but how they relate to ELAs. Obviously, they have a real commitment to that process here at Garfield. Do you have some sense of the level of commitment to that process district-wide, and are we making progress there in terms of the number of teachers and schools that are really following through with a commitment to that process?
Yeah, actually, I think every single one of our schools is committed to the process. Every one of them might be in a different spot. We talk about differentiating for our students and meeting them where they're at. And so we have some of that going on. I think what we've learned in this process, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes there's some reteaching. Sometimes we need to review, or we didn't roll something out quite as thoroughly as we thought. And our principals right now are actually attending a PLC 15-day challenge training is what it's called. And it's with Maria Nielsen. So she's walking them through what a unit of study would look like. So what does it look like when we identify guaranteed standards? How do we match those standards to targets within them? What does developing a CFA look like? And then how do we respond to our students based on the data from that assessment? So I'm actually pleased with the progress we've made and continue to make. There's still learning to do. It's a very big process, but we're really trucking along.
I have a question. I don't know what it is, second or third slide with the K-5 early screening of literacy, that bar chart. I noticed that all of the darker bars, which you said are the dual language bars, they are above the numbers for non-dual language classes. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So what you're seeing is that in general, our dual language students are outperforming our non-dual language student. I perceive that because we've been pouring a lot of professional development into our dual language program, being that it's new, and providing a lot of support around the instruction that's happening in those classrooms. And so I think we're seeing the results of that in our data. We've started to do that same process through the PLC process with all of our teachers. So my prediction would be that we see the bars level out over time. But yes, that is a noticeable factor. If you also look at kindergarten, our dual language students are coming in at a higher rate than our non-dual language students, which will impact growth. The non-dual kids have a wider gap to fill.
So I have a piggyback question. I was intrigued by this slide as well. With lectura, are the dual language kids assessed in Spanish?
Yes, they are assessed in Spanish, and it's not linear. Students don't learn to read the same in English as they learn to read in Spanish. There are different ways that the skills are introduced. So for example, we start our kindergartners off in non-dual classrooms learning letter sounds, or actually the individual phonemes and words. So we call it phoneme segmentation. So at makes cat. And in Spanish, they start with actual syllabication. So they're learning the mi, ma, mo, mu. Those go together to make words.
And this is screening, so this would be the initial, like before instruction happens, this is the screening. Okay.
Yep, and we'll check back in winter, so then we'll be able to see growth, and then again in spring. And in the middle of those benchmarks, teachers are measuring growth based on their progress monitoring, and then they will adjust student groups, adjust their instruction to meet the needs.
This is more of a dual language question than I'll ask the question separately, actually, because that question probably won't be for you. Thank you so much for your time.
We could try.
I do. On slide 3 on the SBA percentages, You may have explained this and I think I missed it. Can you explain what foundational versus consistent means?
Oops. Yeah, so this is new. I actually discovered this when I was preparing for this presentation and was super intrigued by the data and the way it was being represented on our OSPI report card. So this is definitely public knowledge, and I went down multiple rabbit holes to try to figure out exactly what they were trying to say, even calling Aaron Thomas, who's a data guru, and saying, help. What I have found, and I also met with Dr. Green to see what he knew, and he helped me identify that the top set of data are levels 2s, 3s, and 4s. So they are reporting that if a student achieves a level 2 or above on the SBA, they are meeting foundational skills for their grade level. If a student is meeting levels 3 and 4, which is the bottom set of data, they are being identified as being college ready without needing remedial classes. So when you think about if you were to go to YVC and you take that math placement exam, the prediction based on this data is those students would place high enough to not need a lower math level class. Or a ELA, I guess I should stay with.
May I? Following up on Raymond's question with the SBA data, I guess, is it purely just a different way of representing the data, or did the SBA change?
It's just a different way of representing the data.
Thank you.
Which I also actually think will help us understand, like, if we can move our students, if we could move our level 2s to a level 3, look at the difference in the achievement level, and then move our level 1s to a level 2, our data, we would really be moving them forward. And I think that lens helps our educators see the impact that they can make.
I think that's a strategy when I was back working in elementary school, even then, in terms of helping kids achieve at a higher level, not just identifying the kids that are operating at the lowest levels to help, but also kids that are right on the cusp. So if you have a kid that's scoring consistently at level 2, we intervene we identify those kids and intervene with those kids to get them to a level 3 or 4. And so that strategy too also helps bring up an entire school.
Yeah, and in conversations I've been having with principals, they've been eager to meet with their staff and have them identify exactly who their level 2s are and their level 1s so that they can be more intentional.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Thank you again.
Thank you.
For our third report, we have Jewel Brumley, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, talking about highlights from summer school.
Right. I know it's October, but today really felt like summer. So that's why I'm talking about summer school now. It's a beautiful day out there. Summer school, we had well over 500 students participate in summer school from K to 12. And we had a lot of successes. So we had programs from Gear Up, 21st Century, STEM, special education, extended services, migrant summer school, our Title I LAP reading summer school for third graders, and a combined all 3 high schools together, combined virtual summer school for credit retrieval. And so through all of that, what I love about summer school, and I'm really passionate about summer school and intercession, because kids want to come, they want to get better. They're there because, they've been invited and their parents say, yeah, this is a good thing for you. And we see growth every time we do summer school or an intercession. Our 21st Century summer school program at the elementary and middle school, we had, the dates were 18 days in July, and that's when it ended. At high school, we extended that to August 15th because it was virtual and kids could keep working to retrieve those credits. So we extended it to help students finish what they needed to finish before the school year started. We did Monday through Friday, and transportation was provided for all elementary and middle school students that needed it, and with breakfast and a little snack. So it was a half day. Our migrant, we had over 400 invited to migrant, but we had 102 students attend, and each classroom had a teacher and a paraeducator to help those students with what they were learning. Again, we're measuring by the DIBELS. So in our migrant summer school, dual language, kinder and first grade, we you can see how many students in the kindergarten and first grade did on their syllable sounds, their word fluency, and then their math also, because we didn't just concentrate on reading, we also did math. In our English kindergarten and first grade, these are again, there's same scores for what they're being tested on and how they performed at the end of summer school. In second grade, we did oral reading fluency and mathematics, and again, Spanish and English there. So, and the mathematics is the red. In third, fourth, and fifth grade, we did oral reading fluency and accuracy, right? So not only are they reading fluently so that they can understand the sentence as it strings together, but are they accurate in their word pronunciation? And then also how they did in math for third and fourth and fifth grade. Our 21st century program worked on really trying to close the gaps in education and develop their skills so that they can get in and succeed in the 21st century, because those skills that they need are really about STEM, about reading and math for what you need as you move forward through your schooling. And kids had a lot of fun. It was kind of cool to see. They were really enjoying the summer school. The STEM education part, you can see them working on the computer there, and then this was kind of a interactive game that they were doing here in the top picture, but it provides literacy and math and educational technology for understanding, so that they know where they're going when they get older. The STEM standards, next gen science standards, were all incorporated into this, and I don't know, it's just a lot of fun when you talk about science with me. I'm excited about it. So our growth, so this is kindergarten growth, and if you see, it went up 44% in math and 9.6% in literacy. They were started higher in literacy, so it's less growth, but they started higher, so you have to work harder to get more growth when you're already better at it. And the math growth was really, really strong. First grade, again, the growth in the green bar there, 34.7% and 32.4%. Second grade, again, really strong growth in math, which is exciting to see. And then in literacy, 74.9%, which is strong. Now, it looks like a smaller bar there, but that's the scale, because there was so much growth. Would have gone over into the writing. Fourth grade, math, 87.4%. That's really a lot of growth in fourth grade math. And then literacy, 49%. In our lap reading, these are students who are struggling readers. We had 91 students participate, and at the end, they were at 72% of understanding where they needed to be at third grade reading. So 72% were on track. Franklin Middle School had a Gear Up summer school, and Gear Up's a grant that all of our middle schools are now getting into, but Franklin had 45 seventh graders do a lot of STEM or STEAM focused learning. And then they also took a trip to this is the Pacific Science Center. And then they got to see a Mariners game too, all paid for by the grant. And a lot of them, it was their first time ever doing a trip like that, or seeing the Science Center, or seeing a Mariners game. So that was kind of a great experience for them. In our combined virtual high school, we did Pearson Connexus with our students for credit retrieval. And Davis had 10 graduates who finished their schooling to get graduates. You honored them last school board meeting. 204 total credits retrieved. This is, again, virtual, so it's emails back and forth. If I saw a student was struggling, I could email them and say, hey, you can do this, just slow down, take your time, encouraging them to keep going. Davis invited 400, so we had 204 get credit. So that's, virtual learning isn't for everybody, but that's quite a few credits. Eisenhower had 92 credits retrieved. Unfortunately, they didn't have any graduates that were close enough to make it in the summer. And Stanton had 6 credits retrieved. But again, smaller in values for how many students were actually affected by this. YB Tech has a great summer program every year. They had 218 students attend, but what was really cool is we had students from Yakima School District do these paid internship programs at Pacific Northwest University, the Roots to Wings. So that was really good. We also had some paid internship with the environmental education. And so 135 credits earned. 7 school districts came to YB Tech Summer School. As you know, it is the whole area that comes to YB Tech. But our students were the ones with the paid internships, which is really cool. This is a picture of the outdoor education part where they are working with the Yakima Nation, the Columbia River Fisheries Partnership, and they worked with lamprey eels, they worked with salmon, they worked with riparian, like what do you need to have for good flora and fauna for the fish, right? So it's a great program, and they all had a really nice group presentation of what they did in their area to help the native species of plants and animals survive better and not be impacted by man's pollution, for instance. Special education, we had 15 students getting extra help in the summer. Speech, occupational therapy, and of course, academics with reading and writing and math. So those were all served at Whitney. So those students got extra help to help them as they progress this year.
Were those all elementary students, or were they middle and high school students as well?
Those were elementary students, but I can't quote that for sure. Pretty sure they were all elementary, because when we were talking about it, we were talking about the needs and why it was at Whitney because of the nurses stationed there and the work that they could do there. Okay, questions? I know I ran through that kind of fast, but.
Well, just a comment. It was I had an opportunity to visit a couple of summer school programs in progress, and I'm impressed with what's going on. I was a little disappointed in the numbers that we were seeing, and I'm wondering if that's a funding issue, if that's kind of getting students and parents used to the idea that there are some opportunities for them in summer school, or what's driving that?
For the
Low
most
numbers.
part, we invite usually double of what everything shows up. So summer is not a time when a lot of families dedicate it to school time. We worked out funding issues with grants and with like the virtual high school academy, so that we could offer as many as we could, as what we could for them. And then, yeah, not everybody shows up.
Well, thanks. That was my second question too, was obviously we know it's no big secret. We have some budget challenges in our district. And I'm curious, this might be a Trevor question or a Jake question, is how can we fund expansion of summer school and continue to keep these opportunities going?
That's a good question, Director Walker. Most of our summer school opportunities in Yakima are categorically funded. So we have Title, LAP, and then you saw Title III as well. And our summer school programs, if I've seen them, have varied quite a bit across the years, depending upon who is running them. Jewel has been a pretty consistent summer school figure. And so as we go into next summer, we did have to reduce some of the programming that was going to be offered at the summer that you were just reviewing. But we also now have a longer runway to be able to plan our summer programs. And I think with our current set of executive directors, they have plenty of ideas on how to expand the course offerings.
Any questions?
Well, President Walker, I also wanted to confirm that the 15 students served at Whitney, they were all elementary students.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't want to hog all the questions and comments from anybody else from the board. Have a question?
I have a quick one, I guess. First off, I'm a huge proponent of the entire idea, the entire concept. I had a wonderful experience in my own experience at Eisenhower in a summer school program. And a few years ago, our son's experience at Franklin at summer school was fantastic. It was one of the best experiences I think we could point to in his entire schooling experience so far. So yeah, I'm with President Walker. I'd love to see the numbers be different. I guess my question, you mentioned a couple times about students being invited. What's the criteria and how do we come to that criteria for who gets invited and who doesn't?
I don't know the answer to all of the questions. Maybe I can get Jamie to come up and help with some. I know at high school, it's all about credit retrieval. So students that are behind on credit at Gear Up and the 21st Century programs, those are more broad-based. They're not just students that are behind. Jamie, you want to come help out with the LAP program?
So the LAP program where we serve third graders, that's part of the LAP law that we give them that opportunity. And so they are identified based on accuracy. So if they are what we call intensive in their accuracy score, then they're invited, every single student in third grade in our district. And that happens at spring conferences, face-to-face with their parents. We're required to have that spring conference with those families. And then for migrant, all students who are identified as migrant are invited. And then when summer school starts, the list that we have of parents who agree to send students, as soon as those students don't show up on day one, we start calling every single family.
Jewel, I appreciate the student growth charts for 21st Century. That's not all of the students, though. That's only those that are as a part of the 21st Century program.
Right. That's at elementary, it was like a little over 300. And at middle school, it was 124 students in that 21st Century summer school.
Do we have similar numbers for migrant and special ed?
In their growth?
In their growth. So was there a test or something at the beginning and then a test at the end to see how much they've grown in those, 18 days or whatever it was?
Yes, we did test throughout the program, but I don't have that data right now, but I will get it to you.
Okay, thanks.
I should say also that every year at YB Tech, the number of spots that are open for summer school fill up right away. Like they fill up by April. If you haven't signed up, you're almost out of luck, unless somebody drops out.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I always enjoy hearing about the different activities and really love seeing the impact to Davis High School students and those 10 who were able to graduate after having this opportunity. My question, I think, might be more for Jake. How did our summer school offerings shift based on budget issues?
I would say the biggest impact we saw in summer school was to move to a virtual option in high school because we had Title I summer school funded. One thing that does make Yakima summer school cost very expensive is the transportation need. Not all districts have that need in the summertime. And when you add transportation, particularly, even if it's hub and spoke or transit style, it adds a significant amount of cost to your summer school. So that was the major change because what we did is we moved current staffing into the Title I to draw down the funds. So that will be something we have to reevaluate, and based on the data that Jewel provided, whether a virtual option is going to continue because there was some credit accrual, or if we need to go back to in person. The other thing we do is we offer in person historically at each of our schools, and so that also, not much of economies of scale if you're offering the same program at both Davis and Eisenhower, which also something we're examining as well. So that was the major effect as far as I understand it. Am I correct, Jewel?
So it sounds like the number of kids that had the opportunity for summer school really didn't shift based on whatever the qualifiers are. The shift was that for high school, it was a virtual only option.
Yeah, I believe delivery method was the major change.
Delivery method,
Yep.
okay. Okay, thank you.
And we always offered the virtual part of high school's credit retrieval anyway. We just also offered in person before. This year it was all virtual. I should say, wasn't quite all virtual. We did have our migrant specialists come in, and migrant students in high school could come in to the Commons at Davis and get help with their virtual learning, get help with the classes that they were taking, or Washington State history if they needed to link that up for a grad requirement. Our migrant specialist was on site with students every day that opted to come.
Thank you. And when you talked about the Gear Up program at Franklin, you said something that made me think that I guess that was unclear to me. Do all of our middle schools and high schools participate in Gear Up?
They're going to start. Not all of them participated this summer, but now all 4 will be in the Gear Up program.
Okay. And so that sounds like it's a new thing. And is that funding opportunity just became available, or we just chose not to apply for in the past?
The 2 schools that were involved in it last year were Franklin and Lewis and Clark. We were not a recipient of the Gear Up application previously, but they had some overage funding and reached out to Yakima and helped support those 2 schools at the end of last year. And then we engaged in the Gear Up opportunity with the University of Washington, and all 4 schools are now selected. So last year it was limited with overage funds from other districts. Moving forward, all 4 elementaries or middle schools.
And I believe it's for a 6-year term on the grant.
Yeah, it'll follow the students all the way up through high school.
Okay.
We've had Gear Up throughout the years in Yakima, but it vacillates based on the federal funding levels and who's administering the grant to you. But as Dr. Green said, we're back in it, and now we have all 4 schools for a 6-year term, which will be good.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You don't have to answer my questions. I'm just thinking out loud here. So when I hear your presentation, I'm thinking how and the impact of that on summer learning loss, right? How are we closing the achievement gaps? How is it increasing academic achievement, and according to our equity policy, how are we providing access to other opportunities, right? So those are all questions. Again, you don't have to answer those. So in my mind, I'm trying to connect everything that you presented in summer school and how that's achieving or not achieving those things that I just mentioned. So maybe that's more for a conversation with our superintendent at a later date, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Jewel? Thank you so much. Next up, we have updates from members of the board. Do we have any updates?
By tomorrow is the deadline for districts to submit their priorities from the General Assembly, which happened 2 weeks ago. So I received our submittal. I did a submittal for Yakima as the legislative rep, and I received that submittal, the results of my submittal back today. And so I had Barb forward those to all board members. And so you can see what I submitted. It's not in ranked order. It's just those 130 or so items that we had to choose from, and what I determined were of top interest for our district. Mostly, I think they're all funding things. So you have that list. The legislative committee is meeting this weekend, Friday and Saturday, and we'll be working on the platform for WASDA for the year. I expect that it will end up being much like WASA's platform and all the other education associations, which is the top three. I think it's transportation, MSOC, and special ed, I think. So I think WASA's priorities will align with those pretty well, but we will have to wait and see how everybody submits and what the results of the conversations are on Friday and Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you for your continued efforts in the legislative arena. Just a quick reminder to all the members too, the WASDA elections, you should be receiving a ballot in your email. And so those are occurring right now, and I think the date is 16th, so be sure and vote on the WASDA elections. You have 2 members from this board that are running for different positions, so please be sure and check that out and provide whatever vote you feel is appropriate.
You should have received a link to, you should have received a link in an email around the 1st of October from WASDA. And that link gets you to a unique ballot for you as an individual. Okay? So don't rely on anybody else's link because you may not be able to get in. And there are president, vice president, and then of WASDA, and then the Region 8 positions.
Yeah, the committee representatives.
Yeah. I do have one more thing, actually. I would like to volunteer to take a whack at, working with Bob, a whack at updating policy 1400, which is the board meeting policy. We haven't looked at that for a while, and I think it needs to have some updates done to it.
Any other updates from the board? Okay, Superintendent Green.
A couple of brief items, President Walker and members of the board. I just wanted to re-acknowledge the high growth in math proficiency rate and high growth in regular attendance. In here at Garfield. It was highlighted by Principal Brownlow, but certainly wanted to call that out. I'm glad that he was able to share that with you personally. In addition, I was able to attend a training session, speaking of professional learning communities, as we were talking about earlier, with our instructional facilitators this morning. They worked for about 3.5, 4 hours today, and 3 of our principals were there, and our principals met later this afternoon to receive some of the same training. So it's moving along nicely. I think the most exciting part is to really think about the elimination of the educational lottery. And the reference to the educational lottery is placing your student in any classroom and having them receive the same education versus you just end up having your student in the right class with a teacher that's going above and beyond and doing everything to succeed. And we're certainly striving for the former. And professional learning communities is a way of doing that and bringing our teams together. We talked about the isolation, obviously. It was mentioned here of being an educator in the classroom. That is eliminated when those walls come down. And we know that even every star athlete needs a coach. And by coaching and coming together as a team, we see better outcomes. So I'm excited about that continued work and wanted to let you know that that is continuing. I do believe we have an evening session coming up later. It might be later this week, I believe, on professional learning communities. So we'll call that out here before the end. Maybe it's next week? Okay. All right. And then the last item, not really celebratory of what's happening in the district, but it is one of our board members I want to recognize. Ta-da! Here we have Graciela Villanueva in Hispanic Executive. The title, Graciela P. Villanueva removes barriers at Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic. Following in her family's footsteps, Graciela P. Villanueva supports employees in an organization that supported her family, Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic. Photos are fantastic. I know that that's important to all of us, and we're glad to see her shine on the pages of the internet here. And actually, she was mentioned also for being a board member here, so it's great to have her acknowledged. And when the light shines on some of our hidden stars, it's just a wonderful thing. So thank you, and wanted to recognize her formally in front of all of you. And that's it.
Thank you. Calendar updates, future agenda topics. Kirsten.
Okay, we have some school board meetings coming up. We do have our 7 p.m. on Tuesday meetings, October 22nd, November 19th, and December 17th. Those are all at our central administration building. And then just like tonight, we will visit schools. One is on November 4th at 4 p.m., and that's at Nob Hill Elementary. And the other is December 2nd, also at 4 p.m. at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary. And then there is a slew of varsity home sporting events listed in the calendar on board docs. Those are in the sports of slow pitch, swimming, girls soccer, volleyball, and football.
Thank you. Any other calendar items coming from board members? Okay. Next up, we have comments from the public on agenda items and addressing. We've had some concerns and discussion recently about the process of providing comment, parameters of comment. And as a board, we certainly want to hear from everyone. We also have an interest in keeping meetings progressing in a timely fashion. And so we've had some discussion and looked at that. And our attorney, Bob No, has a couple of clarifications of the policy around presenting and then on comments at board meetings. Sorry, Bob.
Thank you. So I think there were 2 areas of concern that were raised recently. Submission of written comments, and then also when a speaker wants to address more than one topic. We have 2 different operating procedures that address the board meetings, and one's 1400 that Director Rice was just speaking to, and then 1430 both address it. For written comments, the board takes those written comments as part of the public comment period. The written comments can be submitted by anybody that can't attend or for whatever reason they want to submit it in writing instead of coming to a board meeting, they can do so. The policies do not provide for reading those into the record. So if somebody wants to just go up and read a written statement into the record, our policy doesn't allow for that. And I think it's consistent with past board practices because allowing for that to happen could take a lot of time. I mean, a lot of people could submit written comments that would take a lot of time to read in the record, and it's not necessary if the written material is presented to the board in any event. For speakers that want to present on more than one topic, the policies talk about a 3-minute limit, and that it's regardless of how many topics you're going to have. But the board does have discretion to make a motion and allow somebody more time if they want to address more than one topic. But generally speaking, the operating procedures provide for 3 minutes, regardless of number of topics. So those are the two issues that I think I need to speak on today.
Okay, thank you for that.
Clarifying question, written comments, you said, are you referring to when someone who wants to read comments is reading someone else's letter or email versus typing their own comments that they read? Because that's just maybe a little bit more comfortable than speaking.
Right. If the speaker is not present, that's what I'm talking about. A written comment where the writer or the speaker is not present, then that would not be read into the record.
Okay.
If somebody is present and wants to read from writing that they prepared, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about that? Okay. That completed. We do have 6 individuals who have signed up to comment today. First up is Justin Nicholas from Washington Middle School.
Based on that, I will be okay.
Okay, thank you. And next up, we have Lucas Ozuna from Hoover.
You guys hear me? All right. You turn it on. All right, can you hear me now? Let's see. Yeah. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucas Ozuna. I'm YAB's president and head custodian at Hoover Elementary. I want to start off by thanking my fellow union partners, my community members, parents for advocating for our staff, community, and most importantly, our kids. Today, I want to address the misinformation that was provided regarding my YAB's members reduction and for the board to take immediate action. The district hired 2 more supervisors and custodial because our numbers increased from 83 in 2018-2019 to 110 in 2020-2021. Come November 1st, we will be down to 80 custodians with no subs in 3 additional buildings. Schools will be dirtier, classrooms will not be cleaned as often, and our staff and students will suffer. Yet custodial management is over by 1.25 supervisors at the cost of a little over $200,000. In 2022-2023, the district received $1.3 million for 12.5 central admin positions. YSD added 3.38 more positions, which cost the district an extra $1.5 million. YSD also received $1.7 million for 36.58 classified admin positions. YSD added an extra 14.92 positions, which cost YSD an extra $2.5 million. If the district rifts these extra positions, they can save $4 million. YSD also reduced the superintendent's full-time employment by 2.3% and increased his hourly rate by 5.5% and increased the total pay by 3.8%, as reported by OSPI in 2022-2023, for a total of $374,000, and it will be more this year. We recommend that the board amend resolution 7.23.24 and direct the superintendent to RIF 3.38 central admin and 14.92 classified admin to save the district up to $4 million and bring our workers back. Thank you.
This far so that she could provide the board with those numbers. I didn't get all of the numbers. Thank you.
And the source of those numbers. Okay, next up we have Aaron Dunham from Garfield.
Hi, thanks. My name's Aaron Dunham. I'm a resident, but I'm also a school psych here in the district, and I spend most of my week here at Garfield. I want to start off by conveying my appreciation to Mr. Brownlow and his leadership, and thank you all for being here today. When talking about Garfield, there are two things that I really love to share. First, the inclusion efforts. Last year, over half of our self-contained students were spending more than 40% of their day with Gen Ed peers. We saw this benefit everyone, even our Gen Ed students. For our Gen Ed students, these are experiences that they are getting that I didn't have growing up. I am proud of our teachers and our specialists who have welcomed these students with open arms and have been supported by some amazing SPED staff. And as we've heard earlier, we know it's not easy, right? And especially if we're not supported. Secondly, we're really proud of our attendance here. And unlike Richie Bobby, we are okay with second place. So in line with our mission, school is irresistible for so many of our students. And while it's been a team effort, if you talk with anyone around the school, they're going to bring up one name, and that's Jose Robles. Mr. Robles is immensely impactful and a beloved member of our community. He has relentlessly followed up with families if their student is gone to let them know that we miss them. Last spring, Mr. Robles, along with about a quarter of our certificated staff, were caught up in that RIF process. I bring this up because we found a job for Mr. Robles to return in June, and he accepted it, turning down additional pay and other job offers from other districts neighboring us. I feel like this epitomizes the staff we have here at Garfield. We choose to be here, we want to be here, and we care so much for this community. Despite some of the challenges we had last year, we all showed a lot of resilience, and we ended the year on a great note. Finally, I want to be transparent about our current reality. The vibe, so to speak, has taken a pretty big downturn this year. I'd say everyone at all levels is working beyond their capacity. And I want to be clear, at this pace, teachers are going to leave the district. Teachers who, as I have touched on, are quantifiably and positively impacting our community. And that hurts. That hurts for us to see and for us to hear. So I'd like to conclude. I'd like to challenge you to help make the Yakima School District an irresistible place to work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and thank you for your work. Next up, we have Amay Merrill from Roosevelt.
It's actually Amy Merrill. It's not, you can't say it phonetically. So Amy Merrill, and I'm actually an alum of Yakima School District. I went to Martin Luther King, Lewis and Clark, and Eisenhower High School. And I'm also been teaching in the district for 15 years. And I'm teaching 3rd and 4th grade. I was a STEAM specialist for 1 year. I love this district. And so, but I wanted to share some of my my concerns that I'm seeing, because the teachers that were impacted me to get out of the life cycle that I had so that I could be where I am. And so this district did that for me. And I want to continue that. But with all of the cuts that are happening, we're not seeing the resources where the students need it. And a couple of those things have already been brought up. So some of the things, especially in the elementary school, because they're not the neatest eaters, and because we have to do breakfast after the bell in our classrooms and when we're short custodial staff. And this has nothing to do with the custodians. They work really, really hard. It's not about that. But sometimes we don't have a sub and our classrooms don't get cleaned. So we've got giant messes still that my kids have to come into the classroom. And we buy Swiffers to Swiffer up our room so that my kids don't have to come to a dirty classroom. Or, my kids sweep the classroom so that we don't have to be in a dirty classroom. And my classroom is not the only one. My school is not the only one. So when we're thinking about resources, that we need to think about what's impacting the students, day to day. Also, we have lots of high needs. Last year, we were fortunate and a lot of us had small class sizes, and we were able to make some giant growth because of the small class sizes. This year, unfortunately, we're not able to do that, and classes had to be collapsed, and so we're back to our normal sizes or larger, and so we don't have the resources. We have less paras in our buildings, so there's less supervision. We have higher needs. Teachers are feeling overwhelmed with these higher needs. I mean, when you have to deal with screaming, crying kids all day long, and you don't have extra support to deal with that, it gets overwhelming. And we're going to lose some of these great teachers who want to put 100% or 150%, but they're tired because they don't have the resources to support the students and the needs that are coming into our building. So as you guys are looking at things, as you're making cuts, I understand. I'm on a couple boards in the community. Budgets have to be, you got to balance them. But really think about how it's affecting the students in the schools, where they're at, and what resources we can put there for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Kylie Habkirk from Heritage University.
Hi, my name is Kylie Habkirk, and I'm a Heritage University nursing student. And I'm here to talk about the understaffing of school nurses throughout the Yakima School District, and to ask that the district hire substitute nurses as well as more general staff nurses. There are 22 schools in the district that require general nursing staff with 19 nurses accountable for them. That means at any given moment, even fully staffed with one nurse at each school, there are 3 schools without nurses. However, some schools have more than one nurse, so that number of schools without increases. Also, there are not any nursing subs. When a nurse is unable to attend their shift, all other nursing staff must accommodate in shift based on ranking of schools by severity of health condition to provide coverage, leaving a greater number of schools without a licensed nurse. There are 6 health assistants staffed, but they do not have the proper licensing to do assessments on children with things such as diabetes, seizure disorders, and cardiac disorders. If a student with a medical condition has an emergency that requires administration of medication that is only authorized to be given by a nurse at one of those schools without a nurse, they may not get the care they need quick enough, which can lead to an array of different outcomes, some with long-lasting effects. In most emergency scenarios, the life or death factor is time. A child's life or quality of life can be saved by having a nurse provide immediate care, but if the nurse is at another school, they may have to wait for the arrival of EMS, which could be too late. It is unsafe enough to not have staff nurses at each school, but not having backup for the few nurses that are staffed is neglectful and a disservice to students who will end up needing that nursing care when it is not available to them. So, I ask that you reflect on this topic and make the decision to hire subs and enough nurses to keep each school staffed for the well-being and safety of the students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Last but not least, we have Suki Covell from McClure.
My name is Suki Covell. I teach first grade at McClure Elementary. I was one of the people that had requested to have someone from the executive board read my statement last meeting because I was home with laryngitis. That wasn't allowed, so I'm here today. I want to first say how amazing our custodial staff is. We are truly lucky to have such hard workers maintain our school day in and day out. I would like to share how the custodial RIF is affecting our school. Last year, 20 custodial positions were eliminated. By the end of next month, or this month now, an additional 12 will be terminated. McClure students are the ones suffering as a result of this happening. Students are suffering because custodians are not able to keep the school as clean as they did before the cuts. Students will suffer when the quality of the school cleanliness declines. This lower level of cleanliness may result in more sickness for both staff and students, potentially maybe my laryngitis. In the morning, we are required to do breakfast after the bell. The students and I do our part by wiping down desks and tables each morning. I run hot water in the sink to make sure the drain doesn't get clogged with milk and juice going down it. In addition, a student's job at the end of the day is to sweep the floors. And Dr. Green has been in my classroom. He can vouch for the efficiency of my morning process. Since the custodial cuts, there have been an increase in sticky floors and stains. The students and myself are having to clean spills of milk and juice using wet paper towels. And although the students need to learn to pick up after themselves, this takes away teaching and learning minutes each morning. It's not that the custodians don't care about the messes, it's just they have only so many hours in a day and a long list of to-do items since the cuts have been made. The floor remains sticky and then dirt becomes embedded in the sticky mess. This is a disservice to our students because they have to be in messy classrooms. It's a disservice to the families who pay taxes and expect their child's classroom to be clean. I could spend my planning time cleaning up and doing custodial work. I choose not to because I want to take that time to plan for my teaching. I would appreciate the board offering feasible solutions in writing to remedy this concern. And I would like to end with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. Better keep yourself clean and bright. You are the window through which you must see the world. Thank you.
Thank you, and glad you're feeling better. Okay, next up, we have our consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda, and it's an item that comes up every year. It's the interlocal agreements with Yakima Valley College and Yakima School District and YB Tech. Is there any need to pull any of those out for discussion? Okay, not hearing so. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted, which includes resolution 02.24.25. Is that where we are? No, we're at.
No, it's 25033.
Okay, so
25034,
let me start
25049.
over.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted, which includes an interlocal agreement with Yakima Valley College and Yakima School District.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreements with YVC and Yakima School District. Any further discussion? Or it's been moved to approve the consent agenda. I don't have to go through all that. Do I hear any discussion or question about the consent agenda? Okay, Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, we have arrived at the second opportunity for public comment, but I don't see any more names on the list. So,
Should we go look before we?
oh, I skipped one.
Okay.
Resolution number 0.24.25, emergency Washington Middle School water damage. We had an unforeseen expenditure. Dr. Green, would you like to address that?
Thank you, President Walker, members of the board. I come before you requesting approval for resolution 02.24.25. In June, 3 days after school was let out, we had perfect timing for a disaster, if there's ever going to be one, which was a flood of the library at Washington Middle School. If it had to happen, that was really a nice time right at the beginning of the summer because it allowed us to repair that before the start of school or pretty close to. The resolution is for authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for the work and services performed related to the water damage at Washington Middle School. The request is for no greater than authorization for $400,000 of reimbursement from the insurance company, minus the deductible of $25,000 for water damage. Currently, we have exceeded $300,000 and still have books to purchase, which should not exceed that $400,000 reclaim or reimbursement. If you have any questions, I know that Kyle is here to answer them as well. He and I spent that evening together at the flood, as well as many other individuals.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, I move that we approve Resolution 02.24.25, authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for work and services related to water damage at Washington Middle School.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 02.24.25. Any further question or discussion? Hearing none. Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett?
Aye.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva?
Aye.
President Walker?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And we still don't need the second opportunity for public comment, so we will move at this point. I believe we will do the tour of Garfield with our hosts. And then when we return, we'll complete with the policy governance business.
A partnership with one of the businesses in town. They purchased this wall wrap for us to again highlight the tradition of the 3 R's plus S. And so anyway, we just try to, it's an older building, but we've really tried hard to make it appealing. And so when people show up, it's like, oh, it's colorful, friendly, and vibrant. So cool. All right, let's go ahead and walk to, we're going to go to a first grade dual language classroom. So again, this is a first grade dual language classroom. This is Mrs. Alcantara. Mrs. Alcantara has been with our building. This is her 4th year here. And she used to actually be one of the district translators. So from when I started here, she was one of the 2 people that translated all the documents and so forth. But she came to us and asked if she could do our student teaching here, and subsequently we were fortunate enough to hire her. But I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you notice about this classroom that stand out to you? When you think of a student's experience, it's a first grader, dual language student, what are some things you notice about this room?
Everything is in dual language. I mean, I see Spanish and English.
Sure. So lots of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's a lot of language, right? We want our walls to be dripping with language. We want the students to have an experience like that, where they're acquiring a lot of language throughout the day. What else?
Welcoming for parents who may not speak English, and they can walk in and understand what's going on, what the kids are learning, and feels welcoming.
Okay. Anything in particular that you think that feels welcoming to you if you were a parent?
I think just the words on the wall and the posters.
Okay.
All that would feel welcoming to a parent, where school can be scary and and Frida on the back wall there. The image there, recognizable.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to point out is if you go into all of our classrooms, you see tables like this, or you see desks in together. So there's, I would say, the cooperative learning aspect of it. There is certainly less individualization. My teacher did not want me. I can shut that off for a second. My teacher never wanted me to sit by other people, but really, that is what we do. We want our kids to be able to talk. My report card said talks too much in class, and now we say that that's an asset. We want our kids to be able to talk a lot with each other.
You're just ahead of your times.
I was just, this is something I just noticed too. This is an example of a number talk happening in this classroom. So these are 10 to 15 minute exercises that all of our teachers do with their kids. And so they present in kindergarten, they cover this up and they leave it up for just a few seconds. And so they would leave it up for just like maybe less than 5 seconds, and then they put it down, and then they ask the kids, what did you see?
And it's amazing. You wouldn't think that that's a very challenging thing to do, but what ends up happening is the kids start verbalizing what it was that they saw and the location of those dots. So it's really about being able to recognize the number. That's the mathematical goal, but there's a language aspect involved in that communication and that explanation of what they just saw. So it's a real quick shot, and then the kids have to recite what it is. So it's really neat to see that at kindergarten. And then obviously as kids get older, then they're seeing actual math problems that they have to explain the solution to. So this particular room is where our behavior specialists and our behavior support para work together. So this is their workspace. But one of the things I like sharing about this room is you can see examples of students learning how to problem solve better. And I will say that the behavior specialist is one of the greatest assets we have here at Garfield Elementary. The position, the title itself is important, but who we have in that title and the skill set that she brings to our building is really amazing. If you ever want to come and see her in action, Evelyn Escobedo is the behavior specialist, and Michaela Johnson is our behavior support para. But they really take their job seriously. They take the PD that they receive very seriously, and they are constantly working on trying to help our students build their skill set. We are also in the process of doing what's called the SABRS assessment, and it's really a social emotional inventory. Our teachers complete a portion of it, and then students that are in 3rd through 5th grade, they complete their portion of it as well. And so we get a chance to see what kids think about themselves, and then also some of the concerns that teachers have with those students. And based on that data, Evelyn and Michaela, they work on creating groups and with our counselor as well. So I can't say enough about what this program is like. We have a lot of students that do come in here. We have tier 2 interventions where the students come in and they work with them throughout the day. Maybe they're taking a break from their classroom that's been set up as an intervention. They run groups in this room, and they do social skills with students in this room. So. One of the things that we do enjoy though is this book machine that's here. There are 3 ways that you can get a book out of there at the moment. If it's your birthday, you get a coin and you can come pick out your own book that way. The other thing though that you can get it for is if you purchase using our positive behavior points. So students earn positive behavior points for a variety of ways: attendance, good choices, working hard in the classroom. So that's another way that you can do it. And also if you're new to Garfield Elementary, that's part of your welcome packet, is you get to come and pick out a book from the machine. This area I'd like to point out over here in the corner, this is an area where students can go and find time to just calm themselves. And so right here where this chair is, in some classes you'll see, most every class has something, but a lot of classes have bean bags. This particular teacher has this little kind of lounge chair where kids can go. And, it's a recommended space through the work that we're doing with PBIS to help them, find some calmness, to try to regroup.
They ever found you in one of these?
Daily. Yeah. Daily. We really do recognize that the more we put into a classroom, the more distractions there are, the harder it is for kids like Steve Brownlow to attend. So, but there's a balance too. Teachers, they take a lot of pride in what they create in their rooms, but there are some proven ways to create your classroom and some less proven ways. I want to share some of the work that has gone into making this playground more enjoyable for our kids. Our partnership with Stone Church is amazing. There's one particular individual that works for Michelson, and they've got connections because they do a lot of business in Yakima. But they have done a lot of work for us. Namely, the goals that are out there. We used to only have 2 soccer goals, and so we shopped around for some soccer goals online. We found some that were in the neighborhood of about $1,500 a piece. Fabricating goals that size and getting them what you need is not cheap. I asked Stone Church, namely Dusty Kissel, if he could help us out. He went to ASAP. They basically bought the materials and built them for us. And so now we have 3 soccer fields that go on here each day, and it is amazing how much they get used here. He and I got our hair cut together this weekend at the same place. He walked in.
All right. We can probably go on back inside. Okay. Go through this door.
Okay. We just have a few items to complete the meeting today. We have 5 policy governance items. First one up is emergency superintendent succession, and we're doing that again because there have been some changes in the succession order. So Jake, you want to go through that for us, please?
You bet. Good evening, President Walker, members of the board. Before you this evening is the first presentation of the emergency superintendent succession, policy 1000.2.7. This one makes the superintendent nervous as he's talking about what happens when he is gone. This would normally be presented by Superintendent Murrieta. However, I'm doing that this evening. There were no significant changes in the policy, and I did a quick count. There's 100 plus years of experience in the superintendent's cabinet administering schools, or if not more. So in that regard, when you're reading through this as the board of directors, you want to make sure that if something happens to Dr. Green, somebody's able to step up, or the body is able to step up in his place or his absence. And so if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, but there is sufficient experience, both legal, fiscal, and operational, to continue superintendent's absence.
Any questions for Mr. Cooper? And we'll get
tomorrow you will get those mailed to you for survey.
Get the survey monkey. Slipped my mind. I haven't done one of those in a while. Okay, next up is Jake again with 1000.2.8 compensation and benefits.
Yes, so 1000.2.8 compensation and benefits of the internal annual. This executive limitation is twofold. One, it talks about the superintendent's own compensation, which he cannot increase himself or herself, depending upon obviously the gender of your superintendent before you. That is the case this cycle. Again, the board is the arbiter and the sole approver of the superintendent's contract. And then secondarily, it talks about compensation and benefits for employees, consultants, and other workers. Just a reminder that the salary schedules are brought before you and incorporated upon your budget adoption. So, and also posted online. So transparency for salary and compensation, which all the salary schedules are posted online for public consumption. The adoption of the salary schedules is also incorporated within the action of the budget. And then, of course, the superintendent's compensation, which you all have sole control of regarding his contract. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Any questions from Mr. Cooper? And again, the survey monkey will come out on that.
Yes.
Next up is Bob No on policy number 1000.2.9, communication and support to the board.
Thank you, board. This is an executive limitation monitoring report that the board looks at annually, and it has to do with the superintendent's communication and support of the board in order to ensure that the board can, engage in its functions and make informed decisions. So basically, it's presented to demonstrate his regular pattern of providing essential decision and monitoring information to help the board meet its needs. The board's needs may change, from time to time, and therefore this is intended to be a flexible document, but you'll see that the evidence of compliance for each of the areas identified is provided. There aren't any changes to the report, and it's here for the board's approval. I guess it'll come on next time.
Right.
But thank you.
Any questions on that policy? The next two policies I think we can group together. This would be the second reading, 1000.4.0 global governance and management connection, and 1000.4.1 unity of control. Those was presented at the last meeting. The survey monkey went out. We were in total compliance with both. There were no additional comments. So I would just entertain a motion to approve those two.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policies 1000.4.0 and 1000.4.1. Any further question or discussion? Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett?
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.?
Aye.
Director Rice? Vice President Villanueva?
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
There is no need for executive session today. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for coming and for your participation.